What's up, Shadowverse gamers? Dreadjoker 18 back again with another Shadowverse video. This time we're talking about the Heroes Cup and the special rules that are going to be adding Planeswalkers to the game. So if you've played Magic, you're probably familiar with Planeswalkers. They look like this. And with that, they have a starting total that's going to be at the bottom right corner, bottom left corner, bottom corner. And then using the plus and minus abilities, you're going to activate these abilities once per turn, and the loyalty counters are going to go up and down respectively by the amount listed next to the ability. You get to activate the ability, and then you move on with your turn doing other things. And then at the very bottom, there's one that is just a big minus, and that one is called the ultimate ability. And that cashes in all of those loyalty points and uses that ability, and that ability is supposed to be something that really affects the game in some way, shape, or form, because it's supposed to be the Planeswalker's big payoff. Now, I'm hoping that this is going to be some kind of experimentation, adding these heroes / Planeswalkers into Worlds Beyond. I feel like that could be really exciting if this actually ends up going well. I don't know how I feel about it being on the hero, because I feel like them being hero abilities turns it a little too close into Hearthstone, but we've already seen activated abilities in the Worlds Beyond trailer, so if we could play a hero and have them kind of like sit off to the side, exactly like a Planeswalker, I feel like adding a Planeswalker to Shadowverse would be just super cool. We'll see how the initial run of the Heroes Cup goes, and with that, we're going to talk about the starting Valor totals and the abilities of each of the heroes. There's 24, so I'm going to split this into two different videos. We're going to talk about Forest, Sword, and Runecraft today, and those heroes, and I'm going to give my personal opinions on which ones I think are going to be the standouts for each craft. Let's get started. So let's get started with the Forest Craft heroes. So that's the first up on the page. The leaders that we have for Forest Craft, we have Latika, Sekka, and Castel. Each one of them have their own separate abilities. And going forward with all of the rest of the heroes, there will be 3 for each craft, and each one is going to have their own set of 3 abilities, and with the last one being the ultimate in like Planeswalker terms. But going into Latika looks like she starts at 1, and at the start of the match, if you're going second, you gain 1. At the end of your turn, if you played at least 2 cards, you gain 1 Valor. If you played at least 4, you gain 2 instead. Unlike some of the others, Latika is going to be a passive Valor gain rather than an active Valor gain, and you're going to do it by playing multiple cards in a turn. Latika's Hidden Art is her other ability. You use 1 Valor, and then you subtract the cost of a Natura card in your hand. So you can subtract the cost of your Natura and World Trees and use that for Latika plays later down the line. And then her ultimate uses 7 Valor, and then you give all allied followers Storm and the ability to attack 2 times per turn. So Latika's really buffing up her dudes and dudettes. It's crazy. Imagine just getting run down by trees and elves and beast men and women. It looks like it's going to be really aggressive. And at 7 Valor, you're getting 1 per turn if you're playing at least 2 cards. So at the earliest it'll be, or at the latest it'll be like 6 turns if you're going first, 5 turns if you're going second. Moving on to Sekka. Sekka looks like she's going to be fairy based. She does not have passive gain, so she has the active gain 1 Valor in Sekka's technique. If there are any fairies in your hand, change the cost of a random fairy in your hand to 0 until the end of the turn. Otherwise, put a fairy in your hand. So she's a fairy generator, but if you already have fairies in hand, then she just reduces the cost of your fairies. Sekka's Hidden Art uses 1 Valor, and you give +1 to any, or to an allied follower, or any allied follower. You deal X damage to a random enemy follower. X equals the attack of the strongest allied follower in play. So for 1 Valor, you can end up killing off a threat, which is pretty good. And Sekka's ultimate is a lot cheaper than Latika's. At 4 Valor, you give plus X plus Y to an allied 1-point play point follower, and X and Y equals the number of Forestcraft followers that have left play this match, split randomly. It's basically like Fairy Dragon from Resurgent Legends, but the follower also gains Storm, so it could be very, like, if you roll the dice, you could kill somebody with that ability. So I think that's pretty good for 4 Valor. We'll have to see what her deck looks like to see how well the removal actually is going to be. Because if she's bouncing cards several times in a turn, then yeah, that ultimate could be very powerful. And then moving on to Castell, she's also a passive Valor gain. At the start of the match, if you're going second, you gain 1 Valor. She starts at 0, so if you're going second, you gain 1. If you're going first, you have 0. At the end of your turn, if you played a card using Accelerate this turn, you gain 1 Valor. If you played at least 2, you gain 2 Valor instead. So you're going to want to be using your 1 play point Accelerates. Forestcraft has several of them. And with her ultimate being only 8, using the Accelerates twice, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very difficult. Let's read her ability, see what else she's got. Use 0 Valor, put a random follower with Accelerate from your deck into your hand. So Castell's technique tutors out an Accelerate. So for 0 Valor, you tutor out an Accelerate, and then you gain 1 just for playing it. Castell actually has 4 abilities, I just now noticed. She has the passive, and then she has 3 abilities of her own. So you use 0 Valor, get it, you tutor out and Accelerate, and then you can play the Accelerate to gain a Valor at the end of the turn. Seems pretty nice. Castell's hidden art also uses 0 Valor. You give your leader the following effect until the end of turn. Whenever you play a card with Accelerate, deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower. So you play a card with Accelerate and she blasts something. It's for 1, but if you guys know Forestcraft, 1 pings, they add up over time. And Castell's ultimate is going to use 8 Valor and is going to put Purgation's Blessing in your hand. You give your leader the following effect. At the start of every turn, you put Purgation's Blessing into your hand. You not only add Purgation's Blessing to your hand, at the start of every one of your other turns, you're going to add it back to hand. And Blessing of Purgation is a 0-cost spell. You draw until you have 7 cards in hand. If you are in the turn, you are able to evolve. You subtract 3 from all of the cards in your hand. And then at the end of turn, you give plus X to all allied followers. X equals half the number of cards played this turn rounded down. So this is just like Castell's token spell from Academy of Ages. And I think that is going to be super dangerous. On a rating scale, I would probably have to say, personally, I think Sekka's is the worst, just because the plus X plus Y is random, so you're rolling the dice to see how much damage it's actually doing. But depending on what units they have in their decks, that could be pretty potent. But I still think Sekka is probably going to be the worst performing one. I believe Latika will probably be the best performing one, just because giving all allied followers Storm and being able to attack twice can get really nuts. And I do think Castell is really good as well. Castell looks like that's the one that I'm going to want to play the most out of the Forestcraft heroes. But we'll just have to see how potent all 3 will be in practice. Moving into the Swordcraft heroes, the first hero that we got is good old Bunny. Bunny's first ability is called Bunny's Technique. I think their first one's all Technique, then Hidden Art, and then Ultimate. Okay, that's pretty consistent, actually. I like that. So her Bunny's Technique is give +1/+0 to a random allied follower, and then at the start of your next turn, you draw a card. Swordcraft can really benefit with that. Swordcraft has the blessing and curse of being able to play a lot of units in one turn, and so that kind of burns up hand very quickly, so they're consistently needing tutors and draw cards. So having that ability on your hero is going to be a big blessing, I think. And with Buddy's Hidden Art, you use 2 Valor instead of gaining 1. You use 2. You summon an Arcane Personal Carrier. And then at Rally 10, you summon a Val Speedy Magikarp. You guys know about Speedy Magikarp. It absorb a Swordcraft follower and then evolve. Then once it's destroyed, it spits out the follower that it was driving it, and then that follower evolves. So that's actually pretty good for just 2 Valor, especially at Rally 10. Rally 10 you can hit super early because with tokens and things like that, Rally 10 is actually really easy to hit. It's going to be insane. And then Bunny's Ultimate, you deal 3 damage to a random enemy, and you do this 2 times. So if you manage to clear off your opponent's board, you can deal a total of 6 damage to your enemy leader, and that's pretty potent. Not super powerful, but it's potent and rather simple to do, and pretty effective even if you don't clear off the entire board. And at 3 Valor, that's really simple and quick to use. Then we have Not Not. Not Not's another passive. Not Not has a passive just like Sekka and Castell, or Melodica and Castell, but instead of gaining Valor through her passive, she's giving the Officer trait to all followers in your hand and deck. So it's just at the start of your first turn, all of your units turn into Officers, and I'm sure that her effects have something to do with Officer. Not Not's technique, you gain 1 Valor, you discard a follower from your hand, and you put a copy of it into your deck. You give that copy the Officer trait, and you draw a card. So more Officer synergies, more card draw, and you're getting rid of a card that you probably don't need at this time, and then putting it into your deck. And then you're still replacing it, so that's pretty good. It's basically like Mulligan in the middle of the game, and you're still gaining Valor to work your ultimate, so that's pretty good. Her Hidden Art uses 0 Valor, so you love to see that. All pluses, no minus. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower before damage is dealt. If there are fewer ally followers than enemy followers at play, you gain 1 Valor. So you're using 0 Follower to potentially gain 1 Valor. Not starts at 3 Valor, and her ultimate uses 6. So between both of her abilities adding to Valor, you can pop Not's ultimate on turn 3, maybe 4. Let's see how powerful it actually is. You give your leader the following effect. Once on each of your turns when you play a follower, put a random X play point follower from your deck into your hand. X equals the original cost of the follower that you played. So when you play a follower, you put a random follower with the matching play point cost from your deck into play. Ooh, that can get nasty. Depending on what card she has in her deck, you could just be throwing out big bombs on turns 4, 5, and 6. That's kind of nasty, actually. I like that a lot. I think Not might be the first Swordcraft that I'm looking forward to. But let's get into Takatsumi's. Takatsumi might also sway me a little bit. So, I see glitter and gold, and if you know anything about me, I love me some loot sword. So we'll see if he plays into the loot archetype. As a passive, once per turn during each of your turns, when you play glittering gold, you add 1 rally count and you recover a play point. Oh, that's pretty good. Glittering gold is a recovery spell, and adding 1 to your rally count for playing a spell and recovering a play point. So you're for free upping your count, recovering some life, and adding to your rally count. That's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. So Takatsumi's technique, you gain 1 Valor, you discard a card from your hand, and you put a random festive card from your deck into your hand. Not bad. Tutors are always nice. And Takatsumi's hidden art, you use 2 Valor, you give your leader the following effect. The next time your leader takes damage, reduce the damage to 0. So damage mitigation is always nice. Can never be upset with the ability to reduce incoming damage to 0. And then his ultimate, which is interesting, it only costs 3 and he starts at 3. So you can pop his ultimate at the start of the game. That's interesting. Give your leader the following effect until the end of turn. Whenever you play Glittering Gold, give +1/+0 to all allied followers and draw a card. Ooh. So if you stack up your Glittering Golds, you can just cycle through your deck and buff your board by ridiculous amounts. But now I understand why it only costs 3, because it's not super powerful, and you're obviously not going to want to pop it turn 0 unless you really want to. I highly doubt you're going to want to pop that on turn 1. And Takatsume starts at 3, so balancing the hidden art and the technique, maintaining yourself at 3 is actually going to be really simple. And so you just have to time it well with how many Glittering Golds that you've generated and held on to throughout the course of the game. But I could see Takatsume being really good. However, I think that Not's probably going to be the best performing one out of the Swordcraft followers. And I think that Bunny is probably going to be right behind him, or right behind her. But Takatsume, I think, could be dangerous, and I just need to see what his deck looks like before I go ahead and make a final judgment. And now for Runecraft, we have Eleanor, Tetra, and Amaryllis as our representing heroes. Eleanor starts at 1, Tetra starts at 1, and Amaryllis starts at 2. So let's get right into it and see what each of the heroes are doing. Eleanor's technique, you gain 1 Valor. You select a card in your hand. If it's been spell boosted less than 5 times, spell boosted. Otherwise, put a copy of that card into your deck and subtract 1 from the cost. Whew. That's potent. Not only do you just free spell boost a card, if it hasn't been spell boosted enough times, if it has been spell boosted, you put a copy of the card into your deck and then duplicate it, or you duplicate it, put a copy in your deck, and subtract 1 from the cost, making it cheaper. And there's already spells that are going to be cheaper for being spell boosted. That that looks like it's going to be fun. I love spell boost. Her hidden art uses 2 Valor. You discard a card with spell boost from your hand. You add a random card with spell boost from your deck to your hand and spell boost it X times. X equals the number of times the discarded card has been spell boosted. Ooh. Oh, so some of your draw spells that you have been spell boosted, like your Fate's Hand, if you're afraid of overdrawing, you can discard it and add a random card with spell boost, and spell boost the number of times equal to the number of times Fate's Hand has been spell boosted. That's powerful. Especially if we're using cards from Heroes of Shadowverse. Heroes of Shadowverse has some really strong spell boost cards. I really like that. And then Eleanor's ultimate, you select a card with spell boost in your hand, put a copy of it into your hand and spell boost the copy X times. X equals the number of times the selected card has been spell boosted. So you just free duplicate a card in hand? What? That's insane. Especially with cards, again, like Fate's Hand. That's a free draw 4. That's crazy. It's a good thing she starts at 1 because, wow. But even starting at 1, just using the free spell boost / free duplicate and cost reduce is insane. And by turn 3, you got your ultimate ready. Or you can just keep ticking up using Eleanor's technique and then just back-to-back multiple turns over the course. Like, you tick up like 3, 4, 5 times. I'll say 5 times. You could pop her ultimate back-to-back 2 turns in a row. That's Man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like Eleanor already. It's a strong start. But moving into Tetra. Tetra has a passive. At the start of the match, if you're going second, you gain 1 Valor. Now remember I mentioned she starts at 1. If you're going second, that means she'll start at 2. The start of your turn, or at the end of your turn, if you played at least 1 Machina card this turn, gain 1 Valor. If you played at least 2, gain 2 Valor instead. So Tetra is going to stay tried and true and play around the Machina package. Her technique uses 0 Valor. You put a recovery into your hand. So 0 costs, or 0 costs 0 Valor, add 1 to your Valor count is pretty nice. Then you have Tetra's Hidden Art. This one actually uses 1. And until the end of turn, you subtract 1 from the cost of a Machina card in your hand. Okay. Not anything game-breaking like some of Eleanor's, but it's consistent. I like it. And then for 8 Valor, you discard 2 cards from your hand. You put a Latika Verdant Claw and an Azure Blast into your hand. That's kind of interesting that you're going to put Latika into your hand and Azure Blast. But okay, I can get behind it. And moving on to Amaryllis. Amaryllis' technique gains you 1 Valor. You put one of the following cards in your hand in order and change its cost to 0. So I guess it kind of keeps track of which one you use last. So the first time you use it, you're going to get an Insight. The second time you use it, Angelic Sight. The third time, you're going to get an Insight, etc., etc. So that's pretty good. And a 0 cost Insight is always nice. 0 cost Angelic Snipe is not too shabby. You have Amaryllis' Hidden Art. You give an unevolved ally follower the following effect and evolve it. At the end of turn, banish this follower. But you get a free evolve. Okay. I wonder if she's going to play into evolve synergies or if you just want to get some of the unevolved effects. And then for ultimate, you change the cost, attack, and defense of a follower in your hand to 1. I can see some Ginger synergies there. Being able to change the cost, attack, and defense of a follower that's too expensive, and then you play it and copy it with Ginger. I think that could be pretty nice, depending on what cards are in her deck. They have very potent fanfare abilities or evolve abilities. I can see that being pretty good, and you can use her ultimate on turn 2 because she starts at 2. If you tick up and use Insight, then you can use her ultimate the very next turn. So that's pretty nice. I really like that. In terms of how practical I think the 3 will be, I think Eleanor is going to be the most explosive. Spell Boost is already an explosive mechanic, but between Tetra playing into an archetype rather than a mechanic, and Amaryllis and her deck being unknown, I just have to go with Eleanor being head of the pack. HBIC, she's up there. I would definitely say that Tetra's probably second, but that's only because I don't know what's in Amaryllis' deck. But that ultimate has me curious as to what she's going to want to change into a 1-cost 1/1 and why. But I do think Eleanor, Tetra, Amaryllis is my vote for the skill or how good each of the 3 are going to be. And that's just going on paper. We'll see how it looks like in actual practice. Because I can't count, and I forgot that there's actually 8 crafts instead of 6, we have Dragoncraft as well. So we're going to go ahead and cover Dragoncraft. That way we can keep this to 2 videos instead of trying to squeeze all of the remaining 5 into 1 video. So here we go with Valdane. Valdane has a passive. Valdane starts at 1. But at the start of the match, if you're going second, you gain 1 valor. So if you start with 2 if you're going second. At the end of your turn, you gain X valor. X equals the number of Naturian world trees destroyed this turn. So, Natura Dragon players, I hope you're happy. I'm not happy with you. But his technique uses 1 valor, and you give a Natura follower +1/+0 and rush. Good for board clearing, as Dragoncraft is typically trying to play into the later stages of the game, and it's usually a control craft. So, giving something +1 and rush can let you clear your opponent's board and give yourself some leeway when it comes to playing the game out. For 1 valor, you can activate his hidden art. You subtract 1 from the cost of a Natura card in your hand until the end of the turn. So there you go. You can turn one of your trees into a 0 cost, and with it being a 0 cost, you can play it, destroy it, and you get a valor for doing so. So you can use 1 valor and gain more than 1 valor off of using that. And then his ultimate uses 6. You give your leader the following effect. Once on each of your turns, when a world tree is destroyed, it's the second time this turn, you summon Balon, Shining Sovereign, and activate its fanfare effect. So you're summoning Big Lion Dude from Swordcraft. That's pretty nice. And if your leader already has this effect, you give +1/+1 to all allied followers, and you restore 3 defense to your leader instead. Ooh, that's nasty. And if you remember, Baleon is the Swordcraft follower. You activate his fanfare effect, which is this, if at least 10 allied cards have left play this match, you evolve this follower. So just off of playing him, you're going to evolve him because you're triggering his fanfare effect. And he's got Storm when he evolves, Ward when he evolves, and also when this follower evolves, you give your leader the following effect. Once during each of your turns, when an allied Naturian world tree is destroyed, you put a Luminous Blade into your hand. The effect is not stackable, but it lasts for the rest of the match. So just the first time you use this, you're getting 2 leader effects off of Baldain's ultimate. And then Luminous Blade is a 0 play point token spell, and you give +1/+1 to an allied Natura follower. If at least 20 allied cards have left play this match, you give it +2/+2 instead. And then if you selected Baleon as the target, you deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. So that's a very high value ultimate. Moving on to Drak. Drak starts at 3 valor, and his technique deals 1 damage to a follower or the enemy leader. And if you selected an allied follower, you give +1 to that follower. So while Dragon stands, this might be you. Drak's hidden art uses 1 valor, and then you select a follower in play, give it +2/+0, and deal 2 damage to it. That follower is not destroyed by this effect, you gain 1 valor. So you use 1 valor to gain 1 valor and buff up one of your Dragoncraft followers. I think that's pretty strong. It has a lot of potential. And then his ultimate uses 5, but you give your leader the following effect. Once on each of your turns, after you become able to evolve, when an allied follower takes damage, if it's not destroyed, you give +2/+2 and deal 3 damage to a random enemy follower. So that can be pretty nasty. It's dealing 3 to a random enemy follower and buffing up a damaged target. So if we have a bunch of cards in the deck that deal with taking damage and proccing effects, that can be pretty nice. Moving on to the final Dragoncraft follower, we have Mizuchi, and Mizuchi starts at 3. He gains 1 valor using his technique. At the end of your turn, you draw a card. Card draw is never a bad thing in Shadowverse. I feel like there's some decks that just don't have enough card draw, so having it stacked on your leader makes you a-okay because you don't have to fit it in your deck. His hidden art gains you 1 valor as well, so he has no mics. Does not go down. You gain 1 valor, you discard a card from your hand, you deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower and 1 to the enemy leader. So it looks like this might be discard synergies, maybe, question mark? But we will only know once we see his ultimate. For 6 valor, you put Tidal Surge in hand. You give your leader the following effect. At the start of your turn, put a Tidal Surge in hand, and that effect lasts for the rest of the match. And Tidal Surge is going to be a token unique spell. You activate X of the following in any order or in order. X equals the number of different cards played this turn. The first time you activate it is going to deal 1 damage to all enemy followers, then subtract 1 from the cost of all cards in your hand. 2, you're going to restore 1 defense to all allies and then draw a card. And then 3, you're going to give the leader the following effect until the end of turn. Allies deal +1 damage and restore +1 defense. And then if you activate it a 4th time, it's going to trigger number 1 again, dealing 1 damage to all enemy followers and then subtracting 1 from all cards in hand. So Tidal Surge is you're going to be using to reduce your costs so that you can play multiple cards in a turn. And then the next time you activate Tidal Surge, the next turn, it's going to be stronger and more potent. So Tidal Surge is literally a tidal wave. It's going to start small and it's going to go woo until you're ending the game with 3 activations of this. And your creatures are going to be dealing extra +3 damage and restoring 3 HP. So that there is Forest, Sword, Rune, and Dragoncraft. My next video will have Shadow, Blood, Haven, and Portal, and we'll talk about those heroes, so look forward to that one. I'm really excited for this format. I think it's going to be a nice break from the standard, especially considering that Wrath got no nerfs, but it's going to be something that's going to be special and we're all going to remember once we're in the world beyond. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe, show your support for your boy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.